you had to give up a $575,000 home that you acquired at the age of 21 that could still be building value now. And Bob, this steering, they were walking in and people telling them, no, we have not one house to show you.
Often what would happen in the tests that Newsday ran a couple of years ago was a little less blatant than 1964, but that's not saying much. What often happened is the minority tester was given listings, but they were substantially in communities that were heavily minority, and they weren't given listings elsewhere. And one of the points, I think, in addition to the lack of generational wealth that you've touched on, which is terrifically important, by the way, but where you live also determines where your children go to school. It determines their and your ability to get jobs, where you vote, the integration of the schools, a tremendous amount of things. And then a number of your guests, rightfully so, when they find out they've been discriminated against, this is an outrage. This is emotionally troublesome. I had a number of clients earlier in my career where we had to prove that they were emotionally upset. In a rental case, for example, you don't have financial differences much. So the damages are almost all emotional, but you can prove that. They lose sleep, their relationships with their family deteriorate, something you know, Phil, more than I do, but it's real and it's very unfortunate.
Bob, can they make a case for intentional infliction of emotional distress under something like this?
They may be able to, but it's not necessary. The Fair Housing Act is clear that they are entitled to compensatory damages, and that includes financial, but it also includes all emotional distress damages that can be connected to the act of discrimination.
So under the Fair Housing Act, they can collect for that.
Yes, they don't need a special emotional distress statute beyond the Fair Housing Act. In fact, given that it's been 50 years, you'd think that would be outrageous enough. The Act also provides for punitive damages. It's hard to prove. And I think one of the underlying themes of your show is, if it wasn't for videotape evidence and some of the other kinds of evidence, this would go undetected, which is maybe some of the reasons that people still try to get away with it.
Wow.
Absolutely. There's only 28,000 complaints a year from the National Fair Housing Alliance Association, which is the only national organization that actually collects all the data. 28,000. Wow. And they think there's millions of cases that are not being reported.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're not encouraged.
I'm about to say, yeah,
Justin,
absolutely.
maybe we need to start putting body cams on these roads.
Literally.
Well, I mean, so the analog is how we interact with police and how police interact with our communities. You know, and police brutality and policing in general is only become a part of the national conversation when we started implementing body cams on officers. But to your point, I mean, there's only 20,000 complaints, but anecdotally, there's 4 million people who deal with housing discrimination each year.
Is there a correlation between poor physical and mental health and socioeconomic, race, and ethnic composition of neighborhoods? Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.